This is Dr. Stephanie Wautier, and I am the host of Conversations with a Chiropractor. If you have been following along, then you know this is not a health how-to. This is not instructions on how to care for your spine. Conversations with a Chiropractor is a fireside chat, a little bit like Tuesdays with Maury, a little bit like chicken soup for your soul. Sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and listen to this inspirational conversation. In this episode of Conversations with a Chiropractor, I sit down and talk to one of my friends from Palmer College of Chiropractic, Dr. Jill Bala. Dr. Jill shares how she went from a career in finance, living in San Francisco, to being inspired by the man down the hill. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. Dr. Jill Bala, thank you so much for being on this podcast with me.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
Dr. Bala, may I call you Jill during this podcast?
Of course.
We first met during school at Palmer College of Chiropractic. We're going to go way back there in a minute, but we're going to sort of fast forward to now.
Yes.
So you have a clinic in Traverse City called Authentic Health. And in your clinic, you do about 75% nutrition, you do chiropractic, and cold laser.
Yes.
You have come from being a very successful provider in the Chicago area for 15 years. But tell me a little bit about what first got you interested in nutrition.
So that also goes way back. I was married. When we got married, I was in a different field. I actually have a bachelor's in finance, and I was working in brokerage firms, asset management departments. And when I got married, my husband was being transferred around. And so every 2 years, we'd be plucked up from one place and dropped down in another. The unique experience I got to have was every place we went, I found a new chiropractor. And so I got to experience an array of different types of practices and practitioners. And when we moved to San Francisco, there was an old guy who lived at the bottom of the hill, and he just liked to sit in his office and read research. And so I would go down there because, unbeknownst to me, I had this desire to do something more meaningful. He was really into nutritional therapy. Some people call functional endocrinology. It's not quite functional medicine, but using nutrition as a therapeutic way to support the body in healing. And this doctor brought himself back from congestive heart failure. So he was sent home to die. And instead, he got on a plane and went to LA and got all the metal chelated out of his mouth and his blood and his tissues, and he was a marathon runner and had tons of stories that I loved to sit and listen to for hours on end. And that really was the spark that got me interested in how I was going to be able to do this kind of work, and had always had a love for chiropractic. So that was how I decided that was the route I was going to take. And when I started chiropractic school, I knew that was going to be my focus. And so that was a really beneficial way to go through chiropractic school as well, because I got to match up nutritional seminars with our basic classes and kind of learn the nutrition as I was learning the physiology and pathology. It definitely was the thing that made my life passionate, for sure.
Was this gentleman a chiropractor in San Francisco?
Yes.
Okay.
Shout out to Dr. English.
Do you still keep in touch? Do you know?
No, I don't. I don't know where he is. I don't keep in touch with him, but he definitely was a big inspiration for me. So
yeah, he was like a catalyst on your journey.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'd always had this slight fascination with how natural substances could heal the body. And so if there was an article or a book, I would always read it. But he was the first one that kind of put the pieces together, that I understood that this could really make a big difference, and not just a little difference. Like big, scary things could really be healed. So
like life-changing, like congestive heart failure is something people don't come back from.
Right. Yeah. We lived on a hill that was so steep, I would get in my car, drive down to the bottom of the hill, run 3 miles, get back in my car, drive back up the hill because I couldn't get back up the hill after I had run 3 miles. And he would run up that hill daily.
Wow. Those hills in San Francisco are pretty steep.
Yeah.
So did you grow up going to a chiropractor?
I didn't personally, but my mom did. So my
Okay.
mom had a sledding accident when I was very young and almost dislocated her sacrum, which sounds crazy to even think that's possible. And strangely enough, all of her friends had back problems.
Oh.
And my mom was the one that went to the chiropractor most consistently. I think she was also the one out of her 5 or 6 friends that didn't have back surgery. And then I had some other encounters. One of my close friends in undergrad, her boyfriend was going to chiropractic school, and then another of my close friends, her husband ended up going to chiropractic school, and I had a lot of exposure.
So did your mom bring you all as kids to the chiropractor?
She didn't, because I don't think that was something they
Like in that time,
promoted.
yeah, like
Yeah.
in that time, they didn't think like, what was the need, right?
Right.
Why would a child need a
Exactly.
chiropractor?
Exactly.
I mean, we might as well just jump right into the fact that at Palmer, one of your main sort of focuses was pediatrics.
Yeah. The babies. I love the challenge of the pregnant patient, and I really preferred kids. I just thought they were funny, and I liked how we interacted. I thought that would be a more challenging way to practice than just kind of the standard. I just wanted something different. I have a touch of the ADD, so I need a lot of variety in my work, and the kids were one more piece to the variety puzzle.
It's very intense and very, I mean, hard to wrangle sometimes. I mean,
Fun, yes.
Yeah,
Funny, fun.
when you had your practice in Chicago, what would you say was the percentage of pregnant moms and children and adults?
I would say probably on a running basis, I'd have anywhere from 3 to 9 pregnant patients coming in. Depending on where they were in their pregnancy, they may be coming once a week if they're later in their pregnancy, or every other week, or every 3 weeks, depending on where they're at. The funnest ones were fertility cases. So they come in with not being able to get pregnant. They get on nutritional support. They would get pregnant. I'd see them through the pregnancy, and then they would have the baby, and I'd get to adjust the newborn. So those were the arcs of patients that were super fun.
Yeah, like such a gratifying thing because
Yeah.
these people have wanted this, and not that you gave it to them,
Right.
but you facilitated them on their journey.
It was just a very tangible thing, right? That
Mhm.
people may, oh, I feel better, I have more energy, but from going to not having a baby to having a baby, that's a really big deal. So
It really is. Do you know if anyone has ever named a child after you?
not
Right,
that I
know of. When did you start going to a chiropractor?
right out of undergrad, I lived in Jackson, Michigan, and I woke up one day and my entire face had broken out in acne. Like, my boss said I looked like I had poison ivy all over my face. That's how intense it was. And you like, who do I go to? Like, this is so strange. And I knew that the doctor was just going to put me on antibiotics. And I had previous acne experience where that's all they did to me, and it really destroyed my GI tract. And I know I couldn't do that route. And I called my, quote, crazy aunt, who everybody thought she was goofy, and she had all these strange remedies. And she told me to drink some Epsom salt, which tastes horrible, and you can't leave the bathroom for a good long time, to clean out my colon, to get rid of the internal infection. And then and my other friend, whose boyfriend was going to chiropractic school, said, hey, probably if you go get your nervous system balanced, that might help your immune system or figure out what's going on. And so that was my first adult
interaction with
with the
chiropractic.
chiropractor.
So this aunt who was known for these remedies, did she go to a chiropractor or did she just sort of have these like home remedies?
No, she had gone through her own health journey. She was sensitive to gluten, celiac very early on, but she was sick and nobody knew what was wrong with her. And so I think she had been through the gamut. And so she had to turn to alternative because nobody could give her answers. And she figured out before it was really well known that she had celiac. And she had also developed lupus. And so she had to keep herself as healthy as possible just because nobody else was helping.
Yeah.
And so she did have some crazy things, but now that I'm kind of on the other side of it, I don't think they're so crazy. I think she maybe didn't have all the answers, but she certainly was on the right track and she was doing what was best for her. I think it was a lesson in just supporting people and allowing them to have their own health journey and not trying to dictate or say something's right or wrong. It really is a personal journey.
My mom had MS diagnosed when I was 10, and we talk a lot about sort of what that era was like or what that time was like.
Right.
Even though chiropractic, the profession, was really invented in the late 1800s, it didn't gain sort of the academic notoriety that it has now.
Right.
So there were a lot of people probably raised in like 30s, 40s, 50s who chiropractors were known as snake oil salesmen.
Yeah.
And I think even now you've had experiences, maybe frictional experiences, where people are, I want to say, doubting Thomases,
Sure.
where people look at these quote unquote supplements, these nutritional supplements, and they think that's ridiculous. We get all the vitamins we need from food. So talking about nutrition the way that you and I know about it, and talking to someone who has no idea what this functional nutrition is like, how do you explain, like if someone said to you, don't I just get all my vitamins from food?
Yeah. So if you've looked at nowadays farming that's happening now, we know the soil is horribly depleted of minerals. It's filled with pesticides. It's even organic farming. The mineral levels aren't what they were because our food is so deficient in nutrients and we're so filled with pesticides and there's so many things that are dyes and artificial sweeteners and processed foods and synthetic vitamins. To heal the body, you need to get to a therapeutic dose, right? And if we can get to a therapeutic dose, that's when we can move the needle on our health.
So let's just talk a little bit about a few different brand names of products. Not that we're giving anybody like an endorsement, but we do, both of us, believe highly in the source of the vitamins, supplements, nutritional items that we're taking in, ingesting, and offering to people. So there's one called Standard Process that's all whole food, organic. And let's talk a little bit about the protomorphogen.
Yeah, that's a really unique product. And it was developed by Royal Lee, I think in the 30s. And basically, a lot of companies take, let's use the thymus gland as an example. So the thymus gland, when you chop it up and you give it to people, it actually improves the immune response.
So people might get confused. This is not the thyroid.
Right.
This is the thymus.
The thymus.
Tell us a little bit about the thymus gland.
The thymus is behind your sternum, and that is where the quote T cells come from, which we know are popular because of the AIDS crisis. The T cells got really low. The thymus is one of your main organs for the immune system. So you can do liver, you can do thyroid, you can do spleen, you can do any of the organs. So if we just use the thymus as an example, so most companies take the thymus, chop it up, and put that into a capsule as a supplement, and that works great. And some companies chop it up, spin it out, and take the top layer as the cytosol and use that as a supplement, and that works great. And what Royal Lee discovered was when you spun it out, the nuclear proteins would go to the bottom. and that would offer something different. So when we ingest protomorphogens, which are essentially just the nuclear proteins from the organ, the heavy part that goes to the bottom, it gives the body a blueprint on how to repair an organ, which is different than what the chopped up organ would give us or the cytosol from the organ would give us. It gives a blueprint, and then it offers a distraction. So one of the more popular ones we use is the thyroid PMG. The thyroid is the one that's around your neck. That's one of our main endocrine organs. And if somebody has, for example, Hashimoto's, we can give them the protomorphogen for thyroid, and it sort of distracts the immune system from attacking their thyroid, and it attacks these nuclear proteins. So that's the idea.
When we talk about like an autoimmune disease, it's really that our own body is attacking itself.
And that's one of the things that gets confused, because then people become afraid of their body. And we shouldn't be afraid of our body. Our body is doing absolute best it can. It's trying to help you survive.
Ooh.
And so when it's the autoimmune, the body perceives there's an infection in a particular organ. So all autoimmune has the same mechanism. It is the target tissue that is different. For MS, it would be the myelin sheath around the nerves. For Hashimoto's, it would be the thyroid. For type 1 diabetes, it would be the pancreas beta cells, right? When the body perceives an infection, it's because either a toxin or a pathogen has got into the cell, and that's the cell of whatever the target tissue is. So let's use the thyroid as an example. So there's an infection in the cell of the thyroid. Either there's a toxin or there's a pathogen, whether virus, parasite, bacteria, fungus, whatever. If we have a strong cell wall, the cell wall will contain the DNA of that organ or tissue in the cell until the macrophages can come and chew it up, right? If we don't have a strong cell wall, which is those fatty acids determine the strength of our cell wall. We don't have a strong cell wall. That cell wall allows that protein to be released.
So we need like a strong fighting army in our bodies and many levels, multiple levels. Because how do these pathogens get in, right? Because of the cell wall being weak?
They get in just because we're exposed. We're exposed to toxins. So if we're exposed to a lot of toxins, right? Our immune system really can't keep up. Our liver can't really keep up clearing them. So then they start attacking the cell. So one, we want to make sure our environment and our food and all that kind of stuff is as clean as possible. Number two is the pathogens, right? Do we have a strong immune system? Are we restricting our sugar? Are we doing things that make us healthy? Are we being out in the sunshine or breathing clean air, et cetera, et cetera? All the things we know to make us healthy, good sleep. So if the immune system can keep those things at bay, they don't get into the cell. But if they do, the cell wall should be strong enough to contain them until the immune system can come and chew it up, right? If the cell wall is not strong enough, then the DNA gets released into the blood. Body does not like that, no bueno. But there's another firewall, that we should have enough methyl donors in our blood to attach to the nuclear proteins and make it inert. Methyl donors are like beets and garlic and all those sulfur onions, right? All those cruciferous vegetables, all those things that are sulfur-based, those are great methylators.
And this is different than a traditional antioxidant.
Yes.
When somebody talks about an antioxidant, this is not what you're talking about.
No. We're talking about methyl donors. So these things that are given off a methyl atom, molecule, that will come and attach. So methyl donors help our liver function. And so things that we talked about, beets and onions and garlic, cruciferous vegetables, those are all giving off methyl donors. So if we have a diet that's rich in methyl donors, it will attach to any free-floating DNA and it's not a problem anymore.
So we're less likely to have an autoimmune reaction.
Right.
We are less likely to have that free-floating DNA
Right.
that the immune system identifies as an issue.
Right. If we don't have enough methyl donors, eventually that DNA gets to the liver. And the liver is the police. It is the one that's going to take care of business. So think of it this way. If I have a eyeball cell that gets infected, breaks down, I have free-floating eyeball DNA, and it comes floating by the spleen and attaches to the spleen, and now I'm growing an eyeball on my spleen, right? The body that's what it's trying to prevent. We don't want free-floating DNA from one organ going and attaching to another organ.
We want to keep everybody in their own lane. The body is very systematic, craves to be like homeostatic and neutral.
So the liver's job is to take care of that. So the liver takes that in and says, we have an infection. So whatever the tissue is that has the free-floating DNA, it says we have an infection there. It sends the immune system to that organ to take care of the infection.
Mm.
And that is what everybody thinks, oh, the immune system is attacking itself. And I'm a big fan of not using words like that. The body is not attacking you. The body is not your enemy. The body is really doing everything it can to help you survive. And if you have free-floating DNA in your body and the body doesn't do anything about it, what if it is a serious infection that is going to take you out? So it's a mechanism in our bodies to keep you alive a little bit longer. We may be able to sidestep that because of all of our technology, but it's still there to save us. And we have firewalls that we can put in place to keep that from happening. The other point, and we just talked about this today, was most of the autoimmune happens in women. Most experts say it is repressed anger, unexpressed anger in women, which if you're paying attention, a lot of women are getting a little bit angry. And I think that's okay because otherwise it just makes us sick.
Yeah. And I think that you and I have talked a lot about this, and we're not therapists, we're chiropractors, and we do nutrition, but there is such a huge component with emotion literally making ourselves sick.
Absolutely.
Putting ourselves on the back burner, putting everyone first, denying our own needs, wants, desires. And I think that perhaps women are more susceptible to autoimmune conditions because they either have been raised in a home where they were expected to be the caregiver, or they have just fallen into the role as the caregiver and or to the extreme martyr.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that it's very important for people on their health journey to be addressing some of these, I mean, we'll call it psychological, emotional, mental, because it just ties so closely into that physical.
Yeah, you can't really divide the physical from the emotional. What I was always taught is the physical follows the emotional. So if the emotional body is not in balance, there will be physical symptoms. Another new study is saying that the number one predictor of a happy child is how happy and healthy his mother or her mother is. It isn't whether or not you stay in a healthy home, stay in a marriage, or if your parents are divorced. It really depends on how happy the mother is. And I think that's quite powerful. I mean, I know you and I both, I lost my mom about 4 years ago. You just lost your mom. And I think we both kind of feel that looking back, like what kind of moms they were. I know that my mom was a vital piece to my joy and happiness. And I often feel sad for those who didn't have a good mom, right?
Let's give your mom a shout out. Let's give your beautiful, wonderful mother, Nancy, a shout out. Nancy Bala.
She was an amazing person. She was everyone's angel. She took care, but that was her joy in life. You never question for a second that her greatest joy in life was to be my mother or my brother's mother. It's really hard when you lose a good one. Yeah. Really hard. So
was she a cheerleader for you changing from finance to chiropractic?
It was a really funny time, right? I was 30 when I started chiropractic school. And everybody sort of was like, what are you doing? Because they literally...
You're successful. Your husband is
Right.
successful. You're living in San Francisco.
Right. There's no
You're
problem.
like, you get married. You're like living the American dream, right? Like making money. I mean, just like living the high life, but you wanted more. You knew that there was like a higher calling for your life.
I got to experience, we moved to San Francisco right after 9/11. He got transferred, we moved right after 9/11. I couldn't get a job to save my life. I finally did, but it took like 6 months. And 6 months of me being home with a dog staring at me, and I thought any delusions I had about being a stay-at-home mom or a trophy wife have been blown out of the water. And finances was starting to kind of run its course for me. And I thought, girl, you better figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life, because this is not it. And I secretly ordered material from Palmer.
You did.
Yes, I secretly did. I hid that from my husband just because I didn't want to say it out loud. And when I finally said it out loud to him, I burst into tears. And he's such a doll. He was like, why aren't we crying? Go, I said it out loud. And if I say out loud, that means I have to do it. And if I try to do it and I can't do it, then I'm a loser. He just kind of laughed at me. He's like, I think you'll be fine, honey. And so he was 100% in from the beginning, which was amazing because it was quite a journey. But when I told my girlfriends, they all reacted positively. Later, I heard one or two admit that they were really scared for me. Like they thought I was crazy, but they sure as heck wasn't going to say it. And then when I told my parents, my mom was very excited for me. But of course, after graduation, she also admitted I was just terrified.
Well,
it was such a change.
I mean, like it's such a jump from finance to chiropractic, like completely different worlds.
Yes.
At least my jump from nursing to chiropractic. I mean, although people think, wow, Western medicine into alternative medicine, but I mean, finance.
No, I remember sitting next to you in Anatomy 1, and he was going through all this stuff, and I'm writing as fast as I can, and my hand is cramping. And I look over, and you are writing as furiously as I am. And I said, like, what are you doing? Like, and you're like, what am I doing? I'm trying to get this information.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't you already know this? No, they don't teach us this.
Yeah.
Like,
and I think that's one thing, too, that I want to talk about. Chiropractors are often thought of as being less than in some realms, in some worlds, but most of those first classes that we take are the exact same classes that people who are going into Western medicine are taking, whether it's an MD or a DO program. I mean, the anatomy, the physiology, the cadaver labs, like memorizing every crook and cranny on the humerus and what muscle attaches and where the insertion is. And no, I knew how to take blood pressures. I mean, I was a critical care nurse. I knew how to do more than that, but we weren't memorizing every structure of the body.
That blew my mind. I thought for sure, me coming in as a finance major, that I was just going to be the last in the class, and you boosted my spirits.
Now, I will say I did get to test out of microbiology.
Yeah,
I was excited about that. But your parents were always very proud of you, always very excited, used you as their healthcare provider, as we were talking about today.
Yes, which is rough when your mom dies, right? But I think, like, we have so many positive stories and so many exciting results and things that really keep us going that sometimes we delude ourselves into thinking that. I think my grandmother was my guide to how I want to age. And she had really strong cognitive health right up until the end. She died at 96, but she only died because she got black mold exposure and had a pretty serious lung infection from that. But she was strong and healthy in her mind the whole time. She went for a walk every single day, no matter what. She had her 2 canes and she'd just hoof it down the street. And she grew up when before salt was iodized. And so she put a drop of iodine in her water every morning to keep goiters at bay. And she just had a way of living she just stuck to her guns, and she just kept moving. And I think that makes all the difference. And so I want to go when it's time, but I want to make sure I'm playing right up until the end.
Like
enjoying.
living healthfully and abundantly. And it does take discipline, like whether it's pushing yourself in the snowstorm or the rainstorm. But I think about this, my dad walking like several miles a day. And I mean, we live in a very comfortable society where we are rarely uncomfortable.
Right.
In our temperature, we can turn the thermostat up or we can make a fire. If we're hot, we turn the air conditioning on. Our car has air conditioning. We live a very comfortable environmental life. So we have to push ourselves beyond this comfort.
Right.
I mean, to make ourselves healthier.
We're like sharks. We have to keep moving. And so oftentimes you'll see people who get retired and then things go downhill quickly because they don't have a purpose. They don't have
that structure,
what they want out of life. What's next? And I think of that a lot, and I want to keep going. I got a lot of countries to see. I got a lot of things to do. I got a lot more sunsets to watch, and so.
Tell me a little bit about your daily routines or some of the things that you do to stay healthy.
So my new favorite book is Fast Like a Girl by Dr. Mindy Pelz, and I love it because she has focused on the fact that there's a lot of talk of fasting, and what she has uncovered with some other people is that fasting is different for women, and we have been often left out of the conversation. They don't tend to test drugs on women, or they haven't for a long time. They may be starting to do that, but it's been a very long time of them not testing drugs on cycling women. One of the books that I read that I was just like, oh, this is amazing, was called The Obesity Code. And it was a nephrologist talking about how he was encouraging his kidney patients to fast. But what was pointed out later, I was telling my patient, oh, you should definitely read this book. It's fantastic. Then I found out later that all of the studies that he cites do not include cycling women in the fasting. And I was just devastated because I know personally fasting wasn't working for me. And I would go to seminars and other female practitioners would say, fasting isn't working for my patients. And we would get poo-pooed and say, they're just not doing it right. I'm a big admirer of Dr. Mindy Pelz. She's on TikTok. The book is just very well done and simple, and that's been my new thing. It's fasting based on your cycle. And if you're not cycling anymore, then you fast based on the moon cycle. So it's really easy and fun, and what I've noticed is my body goes with the cycle. Like when I'm in the beginning of my cycle, it's so easy to fast for me, and I love it. I enjoy it. I'm not hungry. I can get through my day no problem. And when I'm on the second half of my cycle, I do need a little bit more carbohydrates. And I continue to make sure I get lots of good protein in the morning. I do coffee in the morning with heavy cream as organic, and I even have an Amish source. So that's been fun. And so I really have something I enjoy in the morning. But the other thing is I don't do it until I've had a full glass of water and the sun's up and shining and I've been moving around a little bit. And if I can get a workout in before I drink my coffee, I do that. And so that I found out for me, I do really well doing keto or close to keto. Always had very fragile blood sugar. And once I got that under control and started to eat a diet that really supports that, then a lot of things got better very quickly. I do have to be careful. I border on autoimmune disease, so I do have to stay away from gluten. I do have to really watch my dairy, which is why I only do heavy cream. And when I stick to those things, I feel good. My hair grows, my nails grow, my skin looks good. The weight starts to come off naturally. I'm not doing any kind of crazy diets. I feel more like moving. I have better interactions with patients. I'm more creative. I think clearer with my protocols and helping other people. So it just gives and gives. If I can let go of the addiction of the sugar and the carbohydrates, for me, it makes a huge change in my life. So I love Pilates. So that's usually my exercise choice. And when my spine's in good shape, I can do Pilates really well and enjoy it.
We could probably talk for like so long just on like a lot of those microcosms of what you just said, like, you know, even like waking up and doing something before you eat or before, like, but we're not going to go down that rabbit hole because I want to ask you about this little rabbit hole, which is distilled water. Talk to me a little bit about that.
It's very controversial, but the reason we've done distilled water for, gosh, it's been almost 20 years now.
When you say we, you mean you and your husband?
Me and my husband. We have no kidney problems and I have not lost any teeth, which is always the thing that they say that it's going to chelate minerals out of your body. It does not. The reason we do distilled water is because the more I checked into water sources, getting water from city sources, is that there's a certain allowable amount of things in the water. And the things they can't get out of the water is all the pharmaceuticals that everybody's on that they pee out. And then when they reclaim the water and clean it up, they can't get those out of there. And so I don't want to be ingesting anybody's Prozac or birth control. And I don't want to be ingesting arsenic or all the other things that may or may not get into the water. I did have a patient who lived in a certain area that the water main would break often due to weather or what have you. And I treated her. I supported her so many times through getting rid of amoebas because she just kept getting amoebic infections, and it was from this water main break. That was a choice we made to make sure that, number one, the water we drink is clean. And then people often think that, oh, you're not getting all the minerals from the water anyway. So I can't take out the toxins out of the water without also taking out the minerals. Just accepted the fact that I'd rather have super clean water and then put the minerals back in different ways. We have liquid minerals we use. We have different tablets we use depending on how the body's going and what we need. So I just don't worry about it. I have very healthy, strong teeth. Despite my dislike for going to the dentist, we have very strong, healthy kidneys. There's no indications or signs whatsoever that distilled water causes any health problems. I've been a test subject. All my dogs have been test subjects. And yeah.
I mean, I know that's one of the things you're really passionate about.
Yes, clean water is it's very difficult to come by. And yes, I would love to drink the water coming off of Mount Fuji, but I don't live near Mount Fuji and I can't get to a glacial source of water. And I don't want to contribute to the shipping and the plastics and the glass to actually import health water from artisanal springs in the mountains of Italy. That would be great, but I don't have access to that, or I don't want to spend the money or
be part of the consumer problem, which then becomes an environmental problem.
Right. So we have a distiller that's just a countertop distiller. It's got 2 pitchers. You fill one up, you plug them in an hour and a half or 2 hours, you have gallon of clean water.
So if somebody was like, how do I know if my water is clean? Like, do you actually tell them, here's like a government agency where you can send your water to test?
So number one, the government would tell you
like it's good
after, hey, you should probably boil your water, right? I often think about what happened in Flint.
Okay.
I thought, like, wouldn't it be better instead of giving all these people plastic water bottles, giving them countertop distillers, right? It's distillers or it's reverse osmosis. Those are the 2 ways to make sure your water is clean. If there is a exposure, you're not going to know about it. And I'll give you an example. The clinic we had outside of Chicago Our water was distilled. That's what we served people in the clinic. Sometimes you would pop the top off of the container that just evaporated. What's left in there is what was in the water. Sometimes it was really smelly and it looked like pus and it was brown and nasty. That was city water. You're taking all the chlorine and all the garbage up. And so there's no way I would want anybody to drink that. Now, when we were in our home, we lived on a small chain of lakes and we had to have a water softener. We knew when we drank the water with the water softener, this was so much salt, right? We're getting so much salt in just our water because it was softened. But I was never comfortable because our well was on this small chain of lakes that had a lot of traffic and pollution / possible pollution. I mean, it's just a choice. And a lot of people do reverse osmosis for that same reason. We do distilled water here because our water's a little sulfury and I just like the taste of it. So,
Yes. I mean, and you've kind of gotten used to that.
yeah.
Which is,
So,
yeah.
it's just one of the things everybody our close friends tease a little bit. I have a water distiller. We don't have a microwave. I have things that I really have looked into and just decided we don't need that.
Now, this is going to be opening another can of worms. Why don't you have a microwave?
I had read an article, which I'm not sure how valid it was, but I know how I felt. Like, we were one of the first houses that had a microwave when it came out, right? And I know how I felt when I ate the food. It didn't taste good to me. It was sort of rubbery. It didn't,
Like, change the consistency.
yeah, it wasn't my favorite. And then I read an article that said that water heated in a microwave actually caused the white blood cells actually increased after ingesting water that was just heated in a microwave.
Wow.
I wasn't out there kind of preaching. It was just like, I don't want to eat food out of a microwave and I don't want this huge appliance in my kitchen. We're just going to get rid of it. And my husband was very funny. He's like, oh, why do we always have to be so weird? And I was like, I'll tell you what, I'll put it up in this cupboard. And if you want to use the microwave, you just take it down, plug it in, use the microwave. Not a problem. And he's like, fine. And so it sat in the cupboard for 6 months because we didn't use it. We used a frying pan on the stove to heat things up, or to defrost meat, we'd just put it in warm water in the kitchen sink. And then at the end of 6 months, I just put it out by the road and the pizza man came by and picked it up for himself. So that was great. But the interesting thing was going into chiropractic school, I had to take physics. And so we were in a physics class and the instructor was a physicist. And she was working in a lab, and that screen that's in front of the microwave was faulty. Her colleague was working in front of that microwave for their experiments, and one day he collapsed, and he was having internal bleeding, and I took him to the hospital. I had to open him up, and inside, and I'm not making this up, she was a legit physicist. And I heard her in class tell this story.
Yeah.
They opened him up and his internal organs were burned on the outside.
Wow.
Like a 2nd-degree burns.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said she didn't use a microwave after that.
Mm-hmm.
She would never cook her food in a microwave after that.
Yeah.
There's some
Just
stuff
some
out
of
there.
these things that like little pieces of information, and then you just make a life choice. You just
Yeah.
make a decision.
Yeah, we have a
this
toaster
is-
oven on the counter, and it's not really that hard. And I just feel a little better not having one in my kitchen. But yes, people call me weird. That's okay.
Dr. Bala, I'm going to jump to your clinic here in Traverse City, Authentic Health, right on Front Street. So if someone comes to your office, do they get to choose whether they only want to be a chiropractic patient? Do they only want to be a nutrition patient? Or do they come in and you kind of decide like all that they need?
They, of course, gets to choose. So they have a chiropractor, they're seeing a chiropractor, that's great. One of the things is I just encourage everybody to be getting adjusted. They don't need to be getting adjusted with me. They need to be getting adjusted. So they need to have a well-balanced, adjusted spine so that their nervous system is functioning optimally, because the nervous system needs to function so that the endocrine system can function, so the digestive system, so the immune system, right? That's the cascade: nervous system, endocrine system, digestion, immune. And so if we're going to be starting to work on the endocrine system and the digestive system and the immune system, and the nervous system is not balanced, we're not going to be very efficient trying to get where we're going. So that's kind of how I frame it. But I do have a very strong philosophy that everybody gets to decide what goes on in their body, or what they choose to do, and when they choose to do it, and how they choose to do it. So I don't demand anything of anyone. They get to choose. Some people just come in for cold laser because it's a newer technology that not a lot of people have, but it's freaking awesome. And I know we discovered it at about the same time.
We did. I was thinking about that just today, that we heard Dr. Silverman speak. You and I were in the same conference sitting next to each other, because Dr. Bala and I went to chiropractic school together. So we've known each other for 20 years.
Yes.
21 years.
Yes.
And anyways, so we are hearing Dr. Silverman talk about an Arconia laser.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you got the first laser. Did you get the first laser?
I think we were really close. I think I'd be in the first one, but then it's been neck, and then he passed me that. Yes. But it's an amazing technology, and it does things that nothing else can do. Healing at the cellular level without ingesting anything or having to do any therapy, just pointing a laser is pretty amazing. Some people just come into the clinic for laser care, and some people just come in for nutrition, and then they I don't have a chiropractor. Okay, then we see them for that, and other people just do it all. So
do you want to talk at all about the method by which you scan people?
No, that's fine. The philosophy is, I think, a little more important, because the way I do it is called EAV. So it stands for electroacupuncture according to Volz. It was developed in the 40s. It's just based on frequency. So we know everything vibrates at a unique frequency. The machine just runs the frequency through the body and measures the resistance the body gives to that frequency. So what I tell people is, I'm asking the body to tell me a story. And I want to know, what is the lowest level of healing? So if you had a broken leg and a rash on your arm, promise you that the body is far more concerned about healing that broken leg than the rash. And we can give you 20 different things for the rash, but your body is trying to heal a broken leg for survival. Body is always focused on survival. So if we pay attention to that and say, how can I help? Not, I'm smarter than you, I'm going to make you do something. How can I help? Then the machine allows us to sort of use that lowest level of healing as our filter and ask what organs are stressed, what's causing the stress. And because everything has a frequency, we can match up a stressed out liver with the right remedies. So 20 different supplement remedies I can give for a stressed out liver, but what do you want, and what do you want right now? And so it's not a diagnostic test. I'm not going to tell people they have some awful disease. I'm not going to reveal some unknown thing to them. I'm just asking how I can help. And so, not being a diagnostic test, the person doesn't have to sit there in fear. We're just asking how we can help. And that's really all we're ever doing. We're there to remove interference as chiropractors. How do I help feed the body, get it to a therapeutic dose of nutrients to allow the body to do what it knows how to do? So when we do that, we can build a very specific protocol to that person at that time. And then as they heal through those next 3 or 4 weeks, we can follow that. So if we run the test again in 4 weeks, then we can say, now what do you want? What have you healed? What are you done with? What are you ready to move on with? And we often see things where the body, if it's in a really low state the first month, the second month, it's like, I have nutrients, I have life again. And people say, oh, am I getting worse? I'm like, no, you're getting better. Your body's strong enough to show.
Instead of being in survival mode,
Right.
then they can be in happy living, functional mode.
Playing offense, not defense.
Mm-hmm.
And so that allows us to get where we're going so much faster than if we're trying to deal with a rash when there's a broken leg, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not the only way to get there. A lot of great practitioners do muscle testing, which is fantastic. That allows to get a very specific protocol as well. It's just my personal choice of how I approach it. I enjoy it more than I do muscle testing, but so many great practitioners, past and current, use muscle testing. I'm a huge fan of that as well.
Dr. Bala, if someone was wanting to reach out to you, could they become a telehealth patient?
Yeah, I do. The sad thing was leaving my 15-year-old practice in Illinois was how so many people I was going to miss, but so many people who still wanted to continue care. And so I do have a big swath of patients that I talk to, some every 4 weeks, some we spread out to every 6 weeks, some every 3 to 4 months, depending on where they're at in their journey, what their goals are. And it's so great to be able to stay connected with them and help them continue their health journey, even though I'm not right there anymore.
So if someone is listening to this podcast and they say, you know what, I really want Dr. Bala to check me out. I really think that she has something to offer. Would you want them to call you, email you, check out your Facebook, check out your website? How to get a hold of you?
Definitely. I have an Instagram. I will get the YouTube up at some point. And so I have different courses I've taught, which people like to watch. But yeah, email, text, phone call, all of those are great and fine. And I do enjoy. And even though if we're doing telehealth, they can't be run through the scan. Some people come to see me initially, make the trip up here because it's absolutely gorgeous up here, a wonderful place to visit. So sometimes they come up and see me twice a year, and in between times we do telehealth. So less ways to go about it.
So Dr. Bala of Authentic Health, tell us the exact website address, could you? Because there's a trickiness, right?
It's AuthenticHealthLLC.com. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Anything else you would like to share with our listeners about your journey or their journey?
It's just been a great ride. And I think this is kind of funny because we started out this ride together and we were essentially the same age. I was married, you were engaged, and we just had a fun school journey together. And then it's been very fun to watch your practice grow and change and evolve, and mine as well. And it's just always good to get back with old friends and have somebody to bounce ideas off of. My husband was happy to see you because he's like, oh my gosh, she's busting at the seams to have somebody to talk to who understands her language. So it's always just great to be around people who get you. So yeah.
Well, I am so grateful for your expertise. And I mean, I can tell our listeners that I am calling you constantly for recommendations for myself, for my family, for children.
Yeah.
If there are other chiropractors who are maybe even doing nutrition, dabbling in nutrition, you also offer service to them.
Yeah. On the website, AuthenticHealthLLC.com, there is a provider section. So I think it says for the doctor. I'm happy to do coaching if people are getting started in nutrition. I'm happy to consult on a case if they have a case that they're struggling with. So lots of ways to get support, and we can design it in any way that's right for them. But I do enjoy that component too. You can't see everybody yourself.
Thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast, would you please rate it, review it, like, or subscribe? You can find me on social media at wautierwellness.com, Dr. Stephanie Wautier on Instagram, or Wautier Wellness Chiropractic and Massage on Facebook. And I'm so curious where your next conversation will take you.